too much of the culture will even dilute the religion. And sometimes for maybe a generation, it will only take for them to start to believe that, you know what, this is actually part of the religion instead of the culture. So it'll be sometimes hard to distinguish what is culture and what is religion.
Hello everyone, welcome back to The Pour, the place where faith and culture are served together. And today we are going to see, when does culture maybe start to overpower faith, or at other times when it promotes faith. And we're going to examine that here in the West, but also throughout the world. And since we're talking about the world, we're going to expand our boundaries here as we do at The Pour. We're bringing in a good Abrahamic brother who's been here before. So welcome back to the show, Imam Fahad. It's great to have you here, brother. Thank you for having me here. It was a hot ticket last time you were on the show. I think you kind of broke the press when you said, hey, what would Jesus do?
That's the fundamental beliefs of all Abrahamic faiths. You know, if everybody believed what Jesus did and everybody followed what Moses did and all the other prophets, I think the world would be a better place. So
I didn't know if this was going to fit. You know, in my ignorance, I wasn't sure if this was halal, if this was like okay.
It's good to go, I think so.
So we got Coke Zero, not Diet Coke, but Coke Zero, the drink of good interfaith men. We just got done with a interfaith gathering. 170 people came together to talk about this. We're low in energy. So we're gonna take the chemicals and the caffeine and share this one together.
All right.
See the oxidization happening? Yeah. And let's try the Coke Zero. Are you a Diet Coke guy or a Coke Zero guy?
I'm a regular Coca-Cola.
Oh.
Oh yeah.
We had this thing called Breaking Bread where we get together the rabbi, an imam, and a priest, and we get a great moderator. We are in a Judeo-Christian area, so we have St.Marys and there's a temple down the street. So they're used to a lot of the rabbi and the priest talking. This guy he did a lot of talking because they don't know a lot about Islam. A lot of us don't know about Islam, especially here in the States. So what we talked about today, which I want to expound a little bit more on today's episode, was there would be questions that would come from the audience sometimes that would say, well, what about women and the treatment of women and the treatment of various classes of people? And sometimes our culture has a tremendous amount of influence on how we interpret our religion. So the Arabic culture, and I'll say this as, you know, part Lebanese guy, it can be patriarchal.
Right.
And so you see that start to influence itself in the practice of religion. And then Sheikh Shafayat would say, well, that's not totally aligned with the Quran.
Right.
So let's just start there with how culture has sometimes started to give mixed messages on where the Quran is, let's say, on women.
A lot of the misunderstandings happened around the realm of women and education. You know, you see that a lot in the news, social media. You'll find, you know, some parts of the world, and especially the Islamic world, you'll find that they're deterred or they're not really supported as far as education goes or rights and things like that. You know, of that nature, whether it be, you know, property or driving, and you know, sometimes it can be very trivial.
Yeah.
But you'll find that, you know, this is a lot of the times it becomes cultural issues, you know, sometimes even governmental issues, you know, why a woman cannot drive in this country, you know. I'm not going to name the specific countries, but we all can.
Saudi Arabia?
Right, I just say it. It didn't have to take so long for them to abolish that rule. So you'll find that sometimes people get misunderstandings about, hey, you know what? This is what Islam is about. You know, they don't allow women to drive. I've even heard, you know, that a woman is not supposed to walk in front of the male husband or, you know, the fatherly patriarchal person in the house.
You've heard that that's what Islam teaches.
Right.
Where you're saying, actually, it's more the culture of that country. It's a tradition.
Right. It becomes intertwined, you know, and as a matter of fact, too much of the culture will even dilute the religion. And sometimes for maybe a generation, it will only take for them to start to believe that, you know what, this is actually part of the religion instead of the culture. So it'll be sometimes hard to distinguish what is culture and what is religion sometimes. And that's where I find a lot of the misunderstandings happen. Women do drive, women do work. You know,
and that's okay in the Quran.
Yeah. You know, as a matter of fact, you know, some of the most prominent leaders were actually women after the death of the Prophet, peace be upon him, even during his lifetime, in which he would have warriors who were actually women. He would actually have scholars who were actually women. As a matter of fact, his wife, Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, she was actually the main scholar in which today we have a scriptures called the Hadith.
As religious leaders, you and I are both have that responsibility. where we see that sometimes our cultural norms are influencing. In the States right now, we're dealing with Christian nationalism. Christian nationalism is, I think, an anathema to the gospel. Jesus didn't align himself with a country, and it becomes very homogenous. It marginalizes other people. There's a singular way of looking at who's safe and who's not, and that America is the place where Christianity.
It all goes down.
It all goes down with it, again, as an anathema to the gospel. America, we're very proud people. We love our country.
Right.
And I think that individualistic way of looking at our country and loving it has just married itself in with the gospel now and saying, we've got it, and we go, and if you want to get saved, you become Jesus and American. So that's where culture for me in this country has reared its head into the Christian walk.
Right.
As a Lebanese guy, culture is very rich there. We were talking about historic countries. Americans, we're young.
Yeah.
We're young bucks. There's other countries where it's history. So how do you just say, like, guys, actually, the Quran doesn't really say that?
I think one of the first verses that was actually revealed to the prophet, peace be upon him, while he was sitting on a cave in isolation by himself in meditation, was actually Iqra, meaning to read. And he was an unlettered person. He was not given a formal education. He was actually a person who didn't know how to read or write. And he said, I don't know how to read. He was saying to Angel Gabriel, I don't know how to read. He says, read, Angel Gabriel said. Read in the name of your Lord. So that basically lets us know as Muslims that at the end of the day, despite what your culture says, despite what your beliefs are, despite what your parents have taught you, despite what your experiences are in life, you always go back to the foundation, the fundamental core book, which is your Quran. In the Christian world, it should be advised to go back to the scriptures, the Bible, the Holy Word. You'll find that with the younger generation where they're more enthused to find out and be more curious about, is this new left-wing type of ideology permissible in my faith? People are searching for answers. Literally, the world is on fire. So then you have to kind of ask yourself, what am I doing to stop this, whatever's going on in the world? The Quran encourages you to explore the ideas of theology and philosophy and science. And don't think that these questions will lead you and misguide you. It would actually lead this person to question, the world is on fire. What am I doing to better it?
Your background is
Pakistan.
How many of your Pakistani brothers and sisters don't practice Islam?
Well, the thing is that we all practice Islam, but in a cultural way.
Did you grow up in the States with other Pakistani?
Of course.
That didn't deter you.
What it did was it actually led me to seek information and seek my own knowledge and validation. Then I started thinking, I was like, what is everything here part of what I'm supposed to be doing, or some things are added into this, or that should not be there?
Some culture.
Right.
You weren't a bad Muslim. You were just a kind of a general Muslim, right?
I'm a general Muslim.
You were good. You were a good Muslim. Like,
You're a Friday guy. You know, the Sunday Christian, the Friday Muslim. You know, I could be better.
yeah, because I think what also deters people is when they see the guy in church who's professing it, loving it, hands up in the air, he's worshiping. And then that guy on Tuesday is acting like a total, you know what, cussing out his children and being a bad neighbor. That's when people are like, oh, this is BS. And I think that's what happened in this country. People are like, I'm calling BS on that.
Yeah. It's easy to say, hey, I'm Christian. But do you really make a commitment to do something? That's what makes you a practicing Christian, you know? So you could be a Christian and you could be a practicing Christian, right? So you could be a regular Muslim and you could say, hey, you know what? I was born Muslim. I'm a Muslim. I'm morally and ethically, I'm a good person. But do you commit yourself and do you do deeds out of the norm to please God?
There's a cost of being a good Muslim. There's a cost of being a good Christian.
When you're servicing your religion, you're servicing God.
And I think that grows you in
It grows you.
in your faith. But how do you incite someone to have more curiosity, to go deeper with God?
I think sometimes people have to go through adversity. And I think really it's in the absence of God, having the absence of fulfillment and your purpose of living, which is faith and being committed to the worship of God for his pleasure. And that in turn will be pleasurable for you.
What I do honor about your culture and the Muslim culture is that since it is a groupistic culture, depression and anxiety decrease tremendously and suicide rates when you feel loved by a community and you also believe in this higher power that loves you. Right. We always ask this of everyone. You asked this. I want to know, since where do you think Islam in America is going to be in 25 years?
I think that we gamble on this one here, but I think it's in a gradual incline. It's steady. I think we're hitting the baseline, but I think it's going to be an incline. I think that people are coming and being more practicing in their faith, whether it be, I think all religions, not just Islam, but I think all religions are going to be an incline.
Yeah, and I think the importance too of this interfaith conversation, for those who might be wondering, it stimulates us, our spiritual curiosity. It stimulates us to go deeper with God. I always walk away from our conversations having a different revelation understanding or deeper understanding of our God. Thank you, brother, for coming on and for the next couple weeks that we have this conference together. For all of you out there to be asking that question, where do you think culture is helping you come closer to God and maybe pulling you away? Always good questions to ask, especially here in the Pour, where faith and culture are served together. We're going to see you next week, and please do subscribe to this channel to get more of these videos and hit that little bell so you get a little ding, 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 ding every time one of these pops up. God bless you, and we'll see you next time here on the Pour. So I guess the big question is, what
is the question?
Well, I think, you know.
I was gonna say Mazel Tov, but I was like.